when it comes to mediums, psychics or mediums, we know for a fact, unfortunately, that there are outright con artists that exist in this space. Some people are out there just to make a quick buck, and it's the psychic energy, mediumship energy is something that can be hard to prove.
Hello and welcome to HolisticCircle podcast, Spiritual Conversation. My name is Philipp Kobald. We are reaching out to people who are passionate about spreading light, love, and joy. And I think it's Alabama, if I remember correct. It's Kelly Palmatier. Hello, Kelly.
Hi, nice to see you.
Did I remember it's Alabama where you are located?
It is not Alabama.
Where is it?
But so I'll give you the credit for the first letter. The name of the town that I'm in is Asheville, and I'm in the state of North Carolina. Yeah.
I was so proud of myself remembering it. That is wrong.
No worries. But no, I'm definitely not from Alabama. It's a very different vibe in Alabama than it is from Asheville. Asheville is a cool, funky, little, eclectic, progressive, artistic town in the mountains. And Alabama is not.
Then I apologize hereby.
No worries. I'm not offended.
When we are proud of our magnificent memory, we're realizing it's not.
I'm not offended. That's all right.
Let me please quick explain to our viewers. It's the famous excitement of podcasting. We had a technical glitch, and a couple of weeks ago, I had the pleasure of talking to you. And, the internet, like in the old days when the tape recorder was eating the tapes, you remember the tape spaghetti? Well, obviously the internet is sometimes doing the same, and this happened to a little podcast. That's how we and you and me and we all have the pleasure of having one more conversation. Thank you so much for accepting.
We just get double the pleasure. Yes. Very good.
So, all right. So I know already what's going to happen, but our audience is the first time. So let's take it step by step. And if this conversation is anything like the last time, we're all going to enjoy and learn a lot and get the good, positive, and light and spirit coming from you to us. Maybe please just a couple of words about your background, what you do, and then let's take it from there.
Okay. Well, hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Palmatier. I am a full-time professional psychic medium. So I am able to pick up on things outside of the 5 physical senses, and then I'm able to use those skills to connect with loved ones who've crossed over. And I've been working in the energetic realm off and on for 30-something years, and I love it. I'm an evidential medium, so I pick up on details such as a spirit's appearance, their personality, how they passed, family memories, inside jokes. I even get exact names in about half my readings.
You know that it's a spiritual podcast, and I have the great, lovely pleasure for talking with mediums from time to time, and it's one of the hot, always interesting subjects, and there's so many things to ask, because for so many of us who do not possess the gift in the way that you do, it will always be fascinating, because of course we're curious to know and to learn about us and to connect, and also the phenomena itself is something. And what me the last couple of months struck me a lot when I more and more went deeper into this. It's there since the beginning of time, right? And it used to be so part of everyday's life. It was just it was just the most regular thing in the world that you have people in the community who have the gift. So these are like 2 questions to start before we go into your work. How do you see that society has changed towards the gift? That is one thing. And just a little bit maybe or about the gift itself. Why are some people blessed to have this and others may not?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump into the part about society. I think that if we talk about since the dawn of time, that this gift has existed, I, of course, believe that to be accurate. But it was way back, ages and ages ago, people would base their decisions on whether or not something was valid, whether or not it was real, based on experiential stimulation and what each person is going through. And so basically it's anecdotal information. If I have a spiritual experience and you have a spiritual experience and, we might skip a few people, but maybe somebody else has a spiritual experience, then we might, as a society, believe that these experiences have validity. But then over time, I think with the advent of the scientific method, I think people have started to rely more on the scientific method, which for many things is excellent. But with the scientific method, you have to be able to repeat something in a very consistent, you have to duplicate it. And psychic energy doesn't work that way. Spirit energy doesn't work that way. Spirit energy naturally ebbs and flows. So you might have a very strong experience one day, but the next day you might have nothing. And it's, for example, in the field of psychology. Psychology is, in my opinion, very valid. We've got lots of very important psychological studies that have been done. And yet it has been proven that if somebody is knowledgeable about psychology, then they go against what we're expecting them to do, think, or say. So even in psychology, things are going to ebb and flow a bit. So I think maybe that has influenced society in a way where people have reached a point where if they can't see it, feel it, measure it in a very consistent, repeatable way, then they're going to discount it.
Thank you so much for this explanation. But then again, I think it's so fascinating that we have moved on in so many ways, but still you still exist and you're doing well and you are booked out and it's hard to get the appointment with you, which is then the fun part of the story, because I think if it would not be true or would not work, this kind of a time you would have not survived. So it's exactly the fun fact that you exist and doing so well, which I think is the weirdness of our time, that the old is still there and we're trying the new and we're shifting back and forward. And there's so many of us who hope that there will be a time when both will come together in harmony. And so with that, another question before we start to talk about, or we can bring your work in a little bit, because, I'm dying to talk about the gift. That is also something that has been so interesting to me over the last couple of months, realizing that I talked to a lot of clairvoyant people and so many said as a child it started, but then they had a decisive moment of calling, or when the first time came in contact with their guardian, light or angel or whatever, that it was really like, it is something that has to be given to you. And this calling whole concept. So maybe if you please a little bit tell about your own path, how it became to, or anything that you would like to reflect on this.
Well, I'm just going to acknowledge right now, Philip, you have a way about you where you speak for a moment and then you ask questions and they're multi-part questions. So I find myself like when I'm listening to you, I almost was going to take notes. I'm like, I need to say this and this. So I'm just going to say, if I don't answer a question that I need to, feel free to remind me to jump back into that part.
No, that's not how I do it. My questions are purely, just in the air. They're light in air, and you can say whatever you feel like in the moment.
My answers will be in the air as well. So as long as we're good with that, it's all good. One of the things I wanted to mention was that it's a very personal thing, because we're talking about, and yet we're still going through. Some people are still experiencing and being open to psychic energy and mediumship services and whatnot. So I just feel that it's a very personal thing. So I wanted to mention that. Let's see. There was something else I was going to say. Oh, one of the things that you mentioned is that it's hard to get an appointment with me. And I just want to say, I feel like we're on the cusp of that with me. Like I stay pretty full. But usually people can get in as of 2025, people can get in to see me usually within a couple of weeks. So a week or two. So I would say, I just want to put it out there, you guys, it's okay if you're interested in booking an appointment at channelingwhitelight.com. That's still available for now. Now, you wanted to talk about gifts. And one of the things that I definitely, and I think a lot of mediums believe this, is that we all have some degree of ability to connect with spirit. It's, in my opinion, it's just intuition, like your gut feeling. We all have that connection to the energetic realm. It's just that some of us have really actively worked at developing it more strongly. Obviously, some people have a natural proclivity that's stronger than others, but then some people work at developing it. And it's just like any muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
This is the interesting part for me because, as I said, I do have the privilege of speaking to, let's say, 20 clairvoyant people a year. And for me, I listen very carefully, I hope. And you have the people who more have that natural. They always had it since a child. And yes, you said it's like a muscle, you must train it, but they're basically born open. They're naturally open. While a lot of others say that basically they were praying for it or working on it. And then they had a decisive moment where it was given to them. And it's really important to me to understand, is it something which comes from within? Or is it something that is you're chosen in some way or not? It's been given to you, that the spirits acknowledge that you are a pure heart and all of it, because it will help us to the conversation. We're going to progress from there. How do you see this?
That's very interesting. I mean, I definitely believe that it can come to you in multiple ways. I don't know if I believe this about the spirits have to give it to you. In fact, I think this is the first time I've heard anyone say that. Um, so that's an interesting point. But it does, in some ways, I can see where that point correlates to my own experience, because I'll just tell you my story. I've been psychic pretty much my whole life. I had a few little things happen to me as a child. And then I actively worked at developing my psychic skills all throughout high school and college. I studied parapsychology at University of Kent at Canterbury in England. I mentored under professional psychic Joe Wynn in Sussex, England. And I really did a lot of experiments and exercises to strengthen my skills. And then I did readings just casually for family and friends for many years. But then it was in 2017, I got a direct message from Spirit telling me to become a medium. So I can see where that could correspond to what you were saying about Spirit giving me this skill. But the way it happened for me is I was sitting at the base of a waterfall, meditating, praying, getting in touch with nature, talking to my loved ones who've crossed over, not expecting any answers, mind you. But I just asked for guidance. I said, I want to make a difference in the world. If there's something I can do to help others that I'm not already doing, please give me a sign and I'll try to listen. And I was expecting something really subtle. A friend would loan me a book or something like that. What I got was a direct message on the spot telling me to become a medium to channel loved ones who've crossed over. So I was like, surprised. Oh, okay. How shall I do that? And I got a direct message, an answer popped into my mind telling me to read books, spend time in meditation, connect with other psychics and mediums. So I started doing all of that right away. By the end of the month, I was channeling. But even then, it felt like too easy. I was like, people were telling me that I was getting hits, but I just thought, wait a minute, this is too easy. The skeptical side of my brain. Am I humoring myself? Am I kidding myself? I don't know. And then one day I was doing a reading for these people and I said to them, is there a Ray or a Roy? And everybody in the room gasped. His name is Roy Ray. I was like, holy wow, I'm really doing this. But the thing is, in hindsight, I can see where I actually did have some connection to spirit happen, even as a child when I was growing up, when I didn't realize that I had mediumship abilities. There were times looking back where I was like, oh, I actually did connect with spirit there, but I just didn't realize it. And I think one of the reasons is that we're all conditioned to think, what is a medium? And like in my case, when I was growing up, I always felt like it was what Hollywood would show me. I believed that imagery, which would be something like a person would visually see a full-bodied apparition in brilliant technicolor, and then they would carry on full conversations using complete sentences. And that's just not the way it works, or at least not for me. So for me, it's more like I raise my vibration, spirit lowers their vibration, we'll meet somewhere in between, and then I get little tidbits, little flashes of information.
That is, again, a wonderful picture. Thank you so much. And that we can work with, or at least this I will carry to the next conversations I will be having. Because this, I also heard a lot about hiring the vibrations. But what you said next is, I heard the first time, lowering the vibration of the spirit. This is I think, why everybody pay attention, because that's definitely something we have not heard of quite often, at least to my knowledge. Because this explains actually a lot. That this is a definitely two-way street, that we have to start to understand that the spirit must be willing to lower the vibration for you so that the link can happen, and you must have the ability. So definitely that calling element is very important. And that, of course, leads us to the next question. Why would you think that you are called and maybe somebody else not? That would be, I guess, a question that a lot of people ask, why I'm not called, or this or that. I know from the shamanic tradition, a couple of podcasts I had now with shamanic teachers, they always talk about lineage. They talk about ancestral lineage. There's always a crazy aunt or somebody who you met as a child and this and that. So what do you think about these elements?
I personally don't believe you have to have a crazy aunt. In fact, I don't have a crazy aunt. I don't have that known direct lineage, but it's working for me. So I've got something going on. So I really think it's more about passion and then following up with action. For example, in my case, once I got that direct message from spirit, it was still up to me to actually read the books, spend the time in meditation, connect with other psychics and mediums, and practice. When I first started out, it wasn't like suddenly I was, from 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It was a process. And what happened is I just got better and better over time. But, I think a lot of times people think I can't offer services to others because I'm not good enough yet. What I did is I put it out there on the internet in a local group for my community. And I just said, hey guys, I'm learning to be a medium and I need to practice. So I'm willing to do these free readings for people, free or whatever love offering works for you, just because I need to get more experience. And that actually went viral in my local market. And I ended up doing multiple readings every night after work and every weekend day for months. And that's how I got more and more experience. But even now, I'm a much stronger medium than I was just a year ago.
That is so interesting, because I imagine that people are either interested or want to contact a medium or want to have questions. And I know that you're very passionate, and that I like so much about you. You're passionate because I'm also interested in that, and we both connect in that element. That's how to figure out if a medium is real, is like a real calling, is it like real light, or if somebody is just faking it. I think that's always in the room. Because as you said, it's not clear sentences. It's not like full colors. It's not like Hollywood. So you have to be very careful with the stuff that you receive, the way you understand it, where is it coming from, and so do you think it's a good moment before we get some of your exciting cases, real world cases, before we a little bit more talk about your everyday work? Would you like to now talk a little bit about how to figure out who's a good medium, an honest medium, or should we first a little bit get some of the juicy stories of everyday life?
I think you've just given us a really great segue, so let's take advantage of it. It's when it comes to mediums, psychics or mediums, we know for a fact, unfortunately, that there are outright con artists that exist in this space. Some people are out there just to make a quick buck, and it's psychic energy, mediumship energy is something that can be hard to prove. And so they're going to take that and run with it. And we know that those con artists exist, unfortunately. Now, in my case, from personal experience, I know that legitimate connections to spirit also happen. And I'm thankful that I've been able to get some that are pretty spot on, spectacular, very detailed. We also know that there's somewhere in the middle, because years ago when I first started mediumship, I would get maybe 1 or 2 hits per reading. And the rest of it was like, I think I'm getting something. It was a little hit or miss. And so we know that there's also that space in the market of people who have some legitimate skills, but maybe they're not quite as good as we would like for them to be. And even the very best psychics and mediums are not typically going to be 100%. The very best psychics and mediums typically are going to be 80 to 90% accurate. So you have to go into a reading, taking it piece by piece. Does this resonate with me? And because of my work in the field for so long, I understand what a lot of the signs are of whether or not someone is legitimate. Maybe they're good intentions, but they're not quite where they want to be. Maybe they're outright con artists. So what I did is I developed a guide, a little book called the Psychic Credibility Scoring System, where I list out all of these 50 different evaluation elements where you can go through and say, did they give me something that was evidential, like an exact name? Did they tell me I had a curse on me? Where basically we know that there are things that are signs of legitimacy, and then there are signs of fraud. Now, it's not like there's just one sign, because even the fraud people, con artists can sometimes get a good hit. A broken clock is right 2 times a day, I think the saying is. And then even the very best psychics and mediums might have something that they do that's not as professional, or they make mistakes. So what I've done is I have created a full guide where you can look at all these different elements, and each element has a numerical score so that you can put all of the scores together for a provider, and you can see then pretty clearly, are they more likely to be authentic, or are they more likely to be someone you might want to steer clear of? And so I put it out there for free, the Psychic Credibility Scoring System. You can get to it on my website, channelingwhitelight.com. Just click on resources and you'll see it right there, Psychic Credibility Scoring System.
I can't wait to read it, as we just discussed a couple minutes earlier, because I think it's so fascinating. And thank you so much in everybody's name, because we all have so many friends who had bad readings, or, been brought into bad places because of it, because they had that vulnerability. And I think it's time now to basically come to the meat and talk about this connection with past life and the work that you actually do on most of your time. So I would very much like to get your own words. How do you imagine this to function? How do you put this together in your head? Or do you not just accept it that it works and you don't even ask yourself why? Or how do you explain it to yourself, that is it a soul? Is it kind of heaven? Or is it just an energetic memory into the sky? How do you explain the things that you do? And also, I think you mentioned, I can only give you one question this time.
All right, very good. You're helping me out here because I've got a terrible memory. I believe that it really is the soul of a living being that basically sheds the physical body but continues on with consciousness. I actually believe that we are all spiritual beings living in these physical bodies for the purpose of having the human experience. And then when our life is complete and the physical body is no more, then the spirit is free and to expand and to progress back into the spirit realm, the energetic realm. So that's what I believe happens. I believe that people do have the ability to connect with that consciousness if the consciousness wishes to connect back with us. That kind of goes back to what we were saying earlier about they have to lower their vibration. They have to be intentional about joining us. And that's why when I do my sessions, and I think most mediums, most ethical mediums will tell you, I can't guarantee who will come through. That's up to spirit. Now, in my case, I've gotten pretty good about I can issue the invitation, but it's up to spirit to accept. And sometimes spirit just isn't available, or sometimes I might not be able to make a strong connection. I'm just simply not able to connect with every spirit every time. It doesn't mean that they're not doing well, or that they don't still exist, or that they're not still around their loved ones.
Do I understand you correct that the souls which are in this energetic realm, you said that you're always in the intermedium, that you're not talking with them directly most of the time, that you have this guidance, that your spiritual guide that kind of like is a translator in between, or do you directly connect with that soul?
So I believe that more times than not, I am connecting directly to the soul. And one of the things that for me really feeds into why I believe this is because when I'm receiving information from spirits, it actually comes through in a slightly different way from a different spirit. And that's, for example, why I'm able to get spirits' personalities. It's really pretty funny, Philip, when I'm doing a reading for somebody. Let's say I'm channeling someone's grandmother and I say, it's hard to hear her. Her energy is very subtle. I'm like, I think I'm getting the answer. I feel like I want to say this. And then, my client will say, oh, so what you got was correct, but she was a very quiet person. Whereas if I'm channeling another spirit, I might be like, whoa, this is what it is. This is how they pass. This is what they look like. And it turns out that is somebody who they had a very robust, loud personality when they were in the physical world. So the energy actually comes through to me in a slightly different way. It's like it has a slightly different flavor with each individual spirit. So for me, I pretty strongly believe that I'm connecting directly with the spirit. Now, I will say, I also have a spirit guide that I work with, and I feel like I rely on her in part to act as a gatekeeper, to make sure that I'm only dealing with spirits of high vibration and benevolent intent. I do some other energetic work to ensure that as well. And then once in a while, if I'm in a reading and things aren't coming out in a very clear way, and maybe we've got a question that's very important, I will sometimes invite my spirit guide to come through and assist with that communication, like an interpreter.
Exactly. Here, I heard recently, I found it very interesting. It was after our conversation, so brand new, that I heard that this fades over time. So obviously after people die, that soul is there quite fresh and strong. And then basically maybe you have some grandparents, but grandparents, it usually really seems to be dissolving back into the light. What is your take on that?
Yes. So I have channeled great grandparents. It is possible to connect in some cases with spirits who existed in the physical world quite some time ago. But I will say you're right. It's easier to connect with people that have passed in more recent history. And in my opinion, I think what happens is when we're first released from the physical body, we still have our energy in a more pronounced way that is really in line with our personality, our thought patterns, our consciousness. And then as we experience the freedom, the expansiveness of the afterlife, the energetic realm, there's so much freedom that we no longer have the illusion of separateness. Like when we're in the physical world, we have this illusion that, you, Philip, are a different person than I am, Kelly. And yet, once we get into the energetic realm, that illusion drops away. So I think what happens is over time, the importance of people wanting to maintain that ego, wanting to maintain that very specific consciousness, I feel like that relaxes over time. And I believe that when a spirit is ready, then they have the ability to choose whether or not they want to expand more into the vastness of the energetic realm, blending together to be part of the universal field that some might call God, for example. Or perhaps they feel that they have more lessons that they would like to learn on this soul's journey, and maybe they reincarnate. But I believe that it's part of the soul's choice to be able to expand more or to reincarnate more. And so they're not so bound to that individual physical manifestation. So for those reasons, I feel that it can be a little more challenging when you're trying to connect with spirits that have been in the energetic realm for a very long time. It's interesting, though, I should move on to talk about, because a lot of people will ask me, what if my loved one is reincarnated and I want to reconnect with them when they're in the spirit realm, when I cross over years from now? And to that, I say that I believe that the soul, the energy, is a bit like a hand here. If you can imagine that this is the soul in the afterlife, in the spirit realm, and then you might have these fingers coming down, and these might be different incarnations. But no matter how many incarnations we always have the higher self up in the spirit realm.
Well, first of all, thank you so much. It's some of the most beautiful words I heard in quite a time, especially the illusion that we are different. I mean, that in itself is a bestseller. And I think it's Christmas time, it's snow is coming, Hallmark movies, I'm drinking tea, and the illusion that we are different, I think that we cannot hear that more often enough, because again, we used to live in a world and time where at least a tribe or something like that had this spiritual connection for real. And now we have this great fragmentation where unfortunately first of all, we think we're above nature. And unfortunately, so many of us think we are above spirit, and now we're also above each other, which is kind of crazy in the first place, if you ask me. Yeah. And then we hear you saying the illusion. I think thank you so very much. This was beautiful.
Okay. Yeah, good.
What would you say about my crazy thing, just a little fun in between, and then we really talk about your work. But I always was imagining like spirits, because some people are still able to connect to 100 years ago, famous composers or famous this or famous that. Would you think that as long as people keep calling a spirit, that this kind of motivates the spirit to still stay connected? Would you imagine if you're the spirit of Mozart and everybody's constantly want to, talk to Mozart, and you're like, I cannot dissolve myself. I got a little bit stay together. People are still ringing me. I'm still busy. What do you think about it, joke?
It's funny. I believe that if somebody is being consistently validated from the physical realm, then obviously there's a much greater likelihood that they energetically will still remain connected to the physical realm in some way. And for those reasons, I feel like that's another example of why it might be easier to connect with spirits who are more recently departed, because, for example, my parents in the spirit realm, I still think of them. I still love them. I still miss them. And so the idea is that they're going to be more likely to want to stick around in the spirit realm until I cross over, and we have that connection, that bond, that reunion. Now, when it comes to famous people being called upon, I'm not sure if I believe that the soul is going to be feeling this sense of duty, but I do, on the other hand, believe in spirit guides. So perhaps it is possible that Mozart, Beethoven, all the greats have this feeling of wanting to be a spirit guide, to guide others through that musical connection or whatever the connection is regarding their work. However, in some cases, it's my belief, my understanding that spirit guides may not necessarily be just one soul, one incarnation that has moved into the spirit realm, but rather you might have, for example, Beethoven, Mozart, Chopin, and they've all sort of reached a point of expansiveness, and yet they can blend together to be spirit guides. And I feel like spirit guides and the energy in the spirit realm is constantly evolving. So someone who works with music, someone who asks for guidance might be dealing with an essence that is connected to some of the greats, but it might be not exactly the way we're imagining it.
So basically, Chopin is answering for Mozart. But I think
I
we had
mean,
a great
maybe.
we had a great. This is I think almost another level, right? I leave it there because the book that you opened is definitely a level above a level when we start to understand how connected this all might be. And I'm not even going there. I'm not going to ask you, is that you still love your parents and you're still sending them love? Is this more than just imaginary? Is this maybe like for real, like energy? So we're not even going there because I think then we're definitely the world thinks we're crazy. So let's talk about your work. The people have this love, they have their loved ones, they have things to say. Just give us a couple of standard. I know every case is different, but want people closure or just people missing or where you hide your jewelry. I know it's all kind of things, but what are like the most regular reasons why people reach out that they want to or need to reconnect?
Yeah. For most people, it's simply a matter of they are going through the grieving process, and using a medium can be a very healthy way to reconnect enough to give you that reassurance that your loved one is doing well, that they've made it to the afterlife, that they're still around, that they watch over you, that bond of love never dies. So that's the simplest, most common reason that people will seek out a medium. I should mention that since I've brought up specifically that it was part of the grieving process, I should mention that for me, I recommend people wait at least 6 months after someone has passed before attempting to connect with a medium. And that's a couple of reasons. One is the spirit may still be going through a bit of a transition phase where they're learning and growing in the afterlife, adjusting. Maybe it might be more challenging for them to be able to manipulate the energy, to lower their vibration, to be able to connect with a medium. So that's one reason. Sometimes it can be more challenging. Not always. I've connected with spirit the same day, but sometimes it can be more challenging for a spirit to communicate effectively with a medium when it's a very fresh crossing. But also as part of the grieving process, I find that even if it's an extraordinarily successful evidential reading, it may not necessarily bring enough healing if the person is still in the most deepest, darkest stage of grief. So for that reason, I recommend people wait about 6 months or more.
And it brings us back to your book, how crazy important it is that you wrote this book with scoring, because we all know from personal experience how vulnerable we are in these circumstances. There's so much
Yes.
stuff going on, and in so many cases, stuff we didn't even aware of that is going to happen with us. So many unanswered questions.
That makes me think I do want to share, for example, one of the most egregious red flags that a medium, a purported medium con artist can do is to approach somebody and say, "Oh, I got this sign. I've connected with your loved one and they're in terrible danger and they need your help crossing over." That is a huge red flag that that person is a con artist, trying to really prey on people who are very deep in their grief. Yeah.
Two more things we need to clear up, if you'd be so kind. We have another 15 minutes or so together, and I've got millions of questions left, but I have to choose, I know. And I would actually, something I never asked you before, so this is going into a new question. I sometimes develop new questions because I'm also thinking a lot these days about, because you just said the word, someone contacts you to help to cross over. So let's talk a little bit about helping to cross over, but in a good way, not in a con artist way. Do you
Right.
see that this, I'm more and more starting, my real question is, I always thought the burial, the ceremonies, the priests or whatever, no matter what kind of religion, and it's all basically spinning around all around the globe, is always for the ones who stay here so they can deal with it. They have people coming, bringing food, being not alone in the house. But the more and more I talk with clairvoyant people like you, I understand that it is rather tricky for some souls to make the transition. And there's some don't want to go, some feel like something is unfinished or whatever. So I'm more looking into those ceremonies that they're also supposed to help with the transition. So I would very much like to ask you, is there help with the transition? What do you imagine it looks like? Or what's going on there?
So I'd say that I don't really feel like an expert in this particular realm, Philip, but it definitely makes sense to me what you're describing about how we know that these ceremonies, these memorial services, these funerals, we know that it's helping people in the physical world with processing the grief and coming to terms with the passing. And to me, it makes sense. That would be the same with the spirit. I've certainly done lots of readings where spirit has acknowledged being there for their ceremony. So that part makes sense to me. I don't know.
Wow, that's the strongest answer so far, because it's so nice that we all can learn and grow, and that we all have, even with all your experience, there's more to come and more to one reason to come back in a year to my little podcast and say, now I know.
Right.
Please don't remember me.
Right.
And so, but unfortunately, where's light, there's shadow. And we have to look at the case where either asking another 3-4 questions, you choose to answer whatever you want. But when spirits do not manage the transition, what's going on there? Can you help? Is this something where you can give guidance to the family to make more praying or this or that? Is it something that you would do or that you would have experienced? Or we talked about light coming to you and like real from above, but a lot of people who are playing around with these clairvoyant capacities, they sometimes get messages that are not from above. They are from tricky or mean spirits and stuff like that. So you choose whatever you would like to talk about, this dark side.
So I work only in the realm of light. That is just me. That's what I do. I work only in the realm of light. And so I do a lot of grounding, psychic protection, clearing, cleansing. I surround myself and my clients in divine white light. I work with angels and spirit guides. I ask when I'm opening up, I have very clear boundaries where I open up the session. When I'm working, I close it down when I'm not working. And when I am open, I ask spirits, I invite in only spirits of high vibration or benevolent intent to bring forth positive messages that serve highest good. So I really don't deal with the darker realm at all. I simply choose not to. There's no reason that I need to. And in fact, I've taught courses on psychic protection, and one of the key tools when dealing with something that's, we'll just call it energy that does not serve us, is to act as though it simply doesn't exist. It was actually Einstein, I've heard, who said, there is no darkness. There is only the absence of light. So one very effective tool is to simply ignore, shut out, block out any acknowledgement of darkness, heaviness, energy that does not serve us, and simply bring in more light.
But nevertheless, I think you give one more reason why it's so important to work. If you trust yourself, if you want to have this clairvoyant person to help you, to guide you, to connect, that you should be really sure and have that strong feeling of trust that this is a person who is like you, only working with the light and for the light, because you definitely do not want to talk with anything else. So that's why this is so crucially important. And I said that I think you're also trying only to pass messages that bring people comfort, or there's messages of love, or to assure people that things are fine. So you're not scaring people or bringing some kind of horror stories into the session. Do I remember that correctly?
Yeah.
Well, we managed to have another exciting conversation, although it's a repetition. So there you go. It's so always for me fascinating. And did I leave something out? Did I remember that so what kind of different services? Let's quick run through the different services, because I know you do group things also. You're not teaching yet, right? Or you're running courses for people who want to learn?
I teach one-on-one, actually. I've got some plans where I might do some teaching in a bigger way in the future, but for now, I'll just go with the services that I offer. So I offer psychic readings, and those are great for getting insight into the path you're on at the moment and what may be coming up for you in the future. And then, of course, mediumship readings, where I'm connecting with loved ones who've crossed over. I also do a lot of the psychic development mentorship. So that's where I'm doing that one-on-one training with people. And basically, I'll meet you wherever you're at. If you're just simply interested, I can get you started. If you're much more advanced, we can talk about growing your business. Wherever an individual is, we'll do a one-on-one mentorship service to guide them. I also do group mediumship readings where I'll stand up on stage and channel spirit for a live audience. And whether it's a small audience of a few people or hundreds of people, I can do group mediumship readings. I actually love to donate my group mediumship readings as fundraisers to nonprofit organizations, where 100% of the proceeds go directly to the nonprofit. And I like to do that because, as I mentioned earlier, when I was asking for that guidance from Spirit, for me, this is a way that I'm making a positive difference in the world. That's why my company name is Channeling White Light, because I'm channeling white light towards a better world. So yeah, I like to do things. I also do things like food drives and blood drives and things for the community where I'm trying to make a difference.
Which is not in Alabama. Thank you so very much. It is, I'm always so happy to have you, because it feels so good to have someone who cares for yourself and the business you do and the services. I know you're very booked, but there's still openings. I got it now. But most of all, you're also giving so much back. You write a book for free where you're trying to help people with the scoring because you care for them, that they get good readings. And I guess you would wish that all the clairvoyant people in the world are good and honest, and so that this business of yours, this world of yours, the calling of yours gets the recognition that it, I hope, one day will get the way it's supposed to be. Thank you so much, Kelly, for being with me today, the second time this year.
Yes, you're very welcome, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you.